on and leave him be. I can only hope my behavior didn't leave a lasting impact on his life. May 7, 29. I put my parents in medical debt after lying about being in pain from crashing my mom's car. I got my driver's license when I was 16 years old. I was never allowed to touch my mother's car because it was pretty expensive and fairly new. When my parents left to go on their wedding anniversary, my mother repeatedly told me not to touch her car. I did anyway. I decided to skip the bus and drive my mother's car to school. School was only about 10 minutes away, so I didn't think she'd notice a difference in the gas. When I got there, so many people crowded around me asking, "When did you get a Porsche?" wanting to sit in the driver's seat, calling me cool and all. I thought I was the coolest kid. After school was over, my friend asked if I could drive her home, to which I agreed. Her home was about 20 minutes away and required me getting on the highway. On my way home from dropping her off, I was going about 80 miles per hour when I lost control of the car and hit the barrier. I was completely fine with just a few scratches and a little bit of pain from the airbag, but nothing concerning. My mom's car, on the other hand, was completely totaled. The only thing I could think of was pretending to feel way worse than I actually was, so I could avoid being disciplined. I called for an ambulance and told them I had severe chest and head pain, and I even went as far as to pretend I didn't remember the date and my name. My parents were contacted by the hospital and had to leave their vacation to come to the hospital. While I was there, they did a CT scan and found nothing. They did a few other checks that I don't know the names of, but eventually I was cleared to go home. We had to take an Uber, and on the way back, my mother couldn't stop crying about how she could have lost me. A couple weeks later, I overheard my parents talking that they had gotten my medical bill and it was over $10,000. My mother also had to purchase a new car on top of that, and it had left them with little to no money. My parents ended up having to rent out a room to hopefully make up the money to pay my bills. I was a stupid kid, and I think about how I ruined everything that day. I'm now way older and have been paying them back the money in increments, and when I'm done, I plan on confessing for what I did. Ace of Spades 1418. I faked a severe medical issue and I don't even know why. I 14F have been faking seizures for the past 3 weeks. It started one day when I decided to fake passing out because I wanted attention from my best friend as I felt we were drifting, and apparently this is all I could think of. I passed out for long enough that she called 999, and by the time I realized the paramedics had arrived, after the seizures were brought up by the hospital, and I figured, hey, I have to keep this consistent. I kept faking these to get out of things I didn't want to do, including in school. This gave me the ability to move to classes with people I knew and get a free pass to my school's sensory rooms to reduce stress. I kept gaining from this, and all I had to do was flop for a bit. Recently, I was too tired to flop for long enough to get out of lesson, so I simply said that my legs weren't working. From there, it progressed to faking repeated temporary partial paralysis. It's gotten me the attention I've been craving, but I'm fed up of all the medical tests they've been putting me through to find an explanation. I understand that what I've done is terrible, and I now bear immense guilt for everything I've put my friends and family through. None of them know I'm faking, and I don't know where to go from here. J.W. Denton. J.W. Denton. Guilty about my reaction to a mouse. I kicked it without thinking. I feel guilty about kicking a mouse. The doorbell rang and my wife went to answer it. She screamed. For a few seconds, I thought she had stepped on the dog and done damage by her facial expression. I got up expecting the worst with her screaming. Then she was jumping away screaming about a mouse. The dog tried to pick it up, and I think it bit her. I, without thinking, kicked it, trying to think quickly how to get it out of the house. It looked dead. I got the dustpan and brush, and it was alive but kept spinning in circles. I put it outside with some toilet paper for bedding and a biscuit in the dustpan. Checked half an hour later, and it was gone. I didn't kick super hard, but obviously it's a delicate creature. I feel awful for kicking it. Bad first reaction. Think my awful logic in the second was to get it out the door even though it was closed. Guilty about my reaction to a mouse. I kicked it without thinking. I feel guilty about kicking a mouse. The doorbell rang and my wife went to answer it. She screamed. For a few seconds, I thought she had stepped on the dog and done damage by her facial expression. I got up expecting the worst with her screaming. Then she was jumping away screaming about a mouse. The dog tried to pick it up, and I think it bit her. I, without thinking, kicked it, trying to think quickly how to get it out of the house. It looked dead. I got the dustpan and brush, and it was alive but kept spinning in circles. I put it outside with some toilet paper for bedding and a biscuit in the dustpan. Checked half an hour later, and it was gone. I didn't kick super hard, but obviously it's a delicate creature. I feel awful for kicking it. Bad first reaction. Think my awful logic in the second was to get it out the door even though it was closed. Burner_account 99999. I read my sister's diary up into adulthood to try make myself better. My sister has always been critical of me. When I was younger, I was so desperate to earn her approval that I constantly kept track of where it was so I could read what she was writing about me. It usually wasn't all that nice, and thinking about it, she probably only wrote in it as a vent. But every time I saw what she had written about me, I would use it to try to change myself so that she'd like me better. I got to the point where I could not read it, even though I grew more and more ashamed of it the older I got. If you happen to see this and realize it's us, I'm sorry. I never should have violated your privacy like that. This happened even after I turned 20, as we were both still living in the same house as our parents. I now know a lot of secrets I shouldn't and feel bad every time I think about it and how she thinks of me. I wish I had never done this, and I'm pretty sure it only served to weaken and hurt our relationship rather than strengthen it as had been my intent. I want to unread all that I've read, but I can't.